Hello, friend. I'm Jen, the head broad in charge at the Brassy Broadcasting Company, and I am here to answer the ages-old podcasting question of how long should my podcast be? My answer? It depends. I work with coaches, consultants, and business owners that solve problems. So the way I'm approaching this particular question is through that lens of if I'm doing a podcast and I want to solve a particular problem for a client or potential client, how long should I make it? I'm also particularly qualified as a podcast listener because I have hired a coach/consultant to solve one of my own problems based on hearing her in a podcast that I produced for one of my clients and then binge listening to her show. And this is why I made the call to her. Number one, I knew she could solve my problem. Number two, she sounded like a nice person. And number three, I felt like after listening to her in her own podcast and on another podcast that she would not judge me for the problem that I was bringing to her. And there is a lot to be said for not feeling like you're going to be judged for your problem and then asking for help in solving it. And she was able to convey all of this. Like I made all of these assumptions in my head based on binge listening to her podcast that were only about 8 to 20 minutes long. My problem was that I had a big gig coming up and I was having trouble in one of the harmony parts that I was singing, hitting a note that was just a little bit out of my range. Now, I didn't want to be great. I have no expectations of sounding like Adele. I just didn't want to suck. That's all I wanted. I just wanted to hit the one note and do it well and not suck. I heard vocal coach Judy Rodman on one of my clients' podcasts as I was editing. That was some divine timing. And I absolutely fell in love with her. She was sharing some great information and some great tips to improve your vocal performance. And Judy has a podcast. So I immediately went to Judy's podcast, downloaded a bunch of episodes, and went on a Judy bender as I was out walking the dog for the next couple of days, trying to figure out how to solve this problem I had of not being able to hit my note. So after my Judy bender, and I still couldn't hit my note, even though she was sharing all this great information, I knew I needed that extra level of help. So what did I do? I went to her website and I booked a 30-minute coaching session so she could help me hit this one note because I needed that actual human feedback that sometimes you just don't get from a podcast. But that's the beauty of a podcast is you can plant that seed. You can establish your expertise. You can still provide solutions, but sometimes people just need a little bit more. They're going to call you when they feel like you can solve their problem and you're not going to judge them. So I booked my 30-minute coaching session with Judy. And guess what? She miraculously helped me fix my problem. I hit the note that was way up here, didn't second my performance, and lived happily ever after. So to bring this back around to answer the question, how long should my podcast be? How long does it take you to solve one very specific problem? I love podcasts because I kind of view them kind of like YouTube. If I can go there and hear how to solve my problem in 8 to 10 minutes versus an hour-long podcast, I'm going to love that 8 to 10 minute podcast because that buys me 50 minutes to go then and try to implement the solution that I've heard about in the podcast to see if it's going to solve my problem. This is why you have to know who your audience is, know what kind of content they want, know how you can best serve them, and then make your podcast around how you can best serve your audience. So my final answer on how long should your podcast be is it depends. I'm sharing videos every Friday on my Jen Eads YouTube channel. If you found a little nugget of wisdom in this video, please hit subscribe. You can also click that little bell and you're going to get a notification when I do post a new video. And if you found this helpful and you know someone that could benefit from watching it, do not bogart the podcasting wisdom. Share it with a friend. Thanks for watching. Happy podcasting. Now get out in the world and do some good.